What is going on with the Carolina Hurricanes and Vladimir Tarasenko? We will talk about that and more in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the lovely folks over at FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on today to get started. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Andrew Schnittker, looking as comfy as ever, has his cat next to him like a supervillain. He's like Dr. Evil from Austin Powers.
Not anymore. He got up to go have a snack.
Fair enough. All right. He's off to plan his next attack or something. Whatever cats do.
Yeah, something like that. He's, I could see him across the room. He's just chowing down on some dry cat food. But I'm good. I'm a little confused though, trying to wrap my head around this whole Vladimir Tarasenko situation as it relates to the Hurricanes.
Yeah, it is really, really confusing because yesterday it was looking like it would be a lock that the Hurricanes would be getting Tarasenko. And that, it was just one that, they're working out like the finer details of the deal. And now today, Tarasenko fired his agent and has a new one and is resetting completely on negotiations. Then he was turning down like $5.5 million offers, $6 million offers from teams, and this is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, so the first report was from Shayna Goldman, covers the New York Rangers mainly, I believe, on Tuesday evening. And Shayna's a great reporter, does great work, has gotten a lot of scoops before. I think she broke the Brady Shea trade maybe when it happened. But the thing is, I don't think she was ever wrong. She said, sounds like Tarasenko is signing with Carolina. Now, this is me speculating here. There's a lot of speculating going on.
Yeah.
Most of the time, sources are agents. So I think what probably happened is the agent who was fired told Shayna that he was, Tarasenko was going to be signing with the Hurricanes. Tarasenko himself, I guess, eventually decided he didn't like the Hurricanes offer. He wanted to see what else was out there. Fired his agent, hired new representation. There's a couple other reports, like you said. This is from Larry Brooks of the New York Post. Obviously, has covered the Rangers for a very long time. That was Tarasenko's last team. Like you alluded to, have learned that Tarasenko had multiple offers from clubs ranging from contenders to rebuilds, and the 5.5 to 6 million per category at varying lengths. Rejected all. Carolina was one, and then fired agent. Kind of strange. Had wanted to remain with Rangers, but there was simply no space. These are from Andy Strickland, who's covered the Blues, I believe, for Bally Sports for a very long time. Obviously, Tarasenko, a long-time Blue, so there's a connection there. I don't think, barring a sudden shift, and as always, things can change very quickly, my guess is that the Alex DeBrincat situation has held up Ottawa from signing Tarasenko. Once he's moved, likely to the Red Wings, that's DeBrincat. That will open the door for Tarasenko to sign with Ottawa. And, him also speculating that, that Tarasenko might be a little bit upset at the lack of money, seeing, ironically, a deal like Dmitry Orlov getting $7.75 million over 2 years.
Yeah, it was really, it's a very odd situation. I do think, you're probably right in, what kind of happened there of, something was said before it maybe should have been said. and then that rubbed him the wrong way, I guess, maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah, but it was really odd because obviously me, a lot of Hurricanes fans were pretty excited about this. A lot of folks were saying that we needed, to get someone like him, to add that scoring. And, it was looking like, oh crap, we'll basically building a super team here in Raleigh. And it, everyone was really excited about it. And then this comes out today. And I definitely think with that full reset of getting new agent and representation and all that, I definitely think that puts Carolina probably, I wouldn't say out of the sweepstakes, because if they're already, given we don't know how close it was to happening, but yeah, if they were close already to signing him, that can maybe put them in a good spot to continue to land him. But definitely getting that new agent after that news broke, that it looks like he was going to be signing here. I definitely don't think it's a very good sign for the Hurricanes and to be landing Tarasenko now.
No, I mean, what would have to happen, I think, is just that he finds out that what he wants just isn't out there for him, and the Hurricanes are his best option in terms of trying to win, trying to cash in on a one. I think it's pretty likely it would be a 1 year deal that
Yeah.
he could hopefully cash in on, have a big season playing in the Hurricanes top six, score a lot of goals, and go out and sign a bigger deal next offseason. The Hurricanes currently are listed with about 4.45 million in cap space. That's with Kochetkov buried in the minors, so you probably have to subtract it. I think the way it works is like another 600,000 to 800,000 off of that. Plus, we we assume Tony DeAngelo is going to eat up 2.5 million of that. The Hurricanes are going to, you can sign someone and you can exceed the cap during the offseason. I don't think you actually have to be cap compliant until opening night. So the Hurricanes could sign Tarasenko and then move somebody out. Like we know they're going to be moving out. We're pretty sure they're going to be moving out either Brady Shea or Brett Pesce. Sounding more and more like it's going to be Brett Pesce. We think Tervo Teravainen is someone that could potentially get moved out as well. So they could sign him and then move somebody out. But I do think even with the prospect of some cap space opening up, he can probably get more money. Like for instance, let's look at Ottawa, because that's the other. That's the interesting thing is the Hurricanes and Senators. I'm sure there's more teams, but those are the only two teams that have actually been mentioned by name in this whole thing. Ottawa currently has like 9 million in cap space, so I think he's
Mhm.
going to be able to get more money even on a 1 year deal. Now, and he might be able to get more term and more money even elsewhere than he would get with the Hurricanes. So it's going to be a matter, I think, of him deciding whether or not he wants to get as much money as he can, or maybe set himself up on a 1 year deal to have his most productive season, get a better deal next offseason, and chase another cup. The thing I would point out is winning a cup might not be a huge factor for him in making this decision because he did just win one with the Blues in 2019. Now, I'm sure he would like another one, and the
Mhm.
Hurricanes of the teams on the free agent market are probably his best shot at doing so. So I don't know. I think I'm with you. I think with everything that's happened, it's significantly less likely that Tarasenko ends up with the Hurricanes. But I don't think it's dead and buried. I think there's still a chance, at least, that they could end up circling back to them. But for right now, if I'm the Hurricanes, I'd probably be looking at other options.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's definitely a bit less likely now. Anything can happen. Like we said, it's looking like there's going to be some trades of guys getting moved out. But if the Hurricanes aren't able to land Tarasenko, they are likely going to need a backup plan because that's kind of a signing that you're banking on at that point. So we're going to discuss backup plans for the Hurricanes if they aren't able to make this deal with Tarasenko right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, it is, of course, baseball season right now. You guys know that we are big baseball fans. You've seen us wearing the Kansas City Royals shirts for Andrew, myself for the Detroit Tigers shirts, and of course, you're probably wearing your own favorite team shirt. And if you're wanting to place a bet on your favorite team or favorite player, you should do so with FanDuel Sportsbook. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's 200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on the MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit fanduel.com/locked on to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com/locked on. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Now, backup plans for Vladimir Tarasenko. Again, anything can happen. The Hurricanes could still get that deal worked out with him. You never know, but it is looking more and more likely that they are going to have a backup plan or are going to have one. Now, obviously, there's been the whole speculation of Erik Karlsson. Obviously, he's a defenseman. Tarasenko's a forward, but Carlson does add a lot of offense. So, we'll kind of keep that, in there, of course. And, we've mentioned before of DeBrincat, but that's looking like it'll be Detroit. So, we'll not really thinking on that one. Another one we have speculated a lot on is Elias Lindholm. And these are all trades with the exception of the DeBrincat one, because I really don't see that happening at this point. They're all ones that I would like to see happen. I think it could be really interesting for those. Again, it'd still fall into the Hurricanes basically building a super team. With both of those names, Carlson and Lindholm, and anything can happen as well. We don't know, who all is really on the trade block for every single team. The Hurricanes could make a trade for someone that we don't necessarily know is on the trade block because we're not really hearing about it. And then, of course, there's other free agents out there as well. Is there any names for you, Andrew, that really stick out that you think could be a viable backup plan or plans for the Hurricanes if they aren't able to get Tarasenko?
I think the Hurricanes' pursuit of Tarasenko shows me that they're looking for that upgrade to their top six forward group to add another goal scorer, another finisher. That's Tarasenko's strong suit. He's not much of a play driver, but he's a really good finisher. Hurricanes probably have double-digit guys who are good play drivers, but not great finishers, so that's exactly the skill set that they needed. The free agent market, I don't really think there's another great option. There's Patrick Kane, but I don't love him as an option, especially coming off that hip surgery. Tomas Tatar is an interesting one. I don't know that he's that pure sniper finisher, but he did score 20 goals for the Devils last year. Has been a fairly consistent 20 goal scorer. Probably wouldn't cost a ton, so he could be an interesting option. You mentioned Elias Lindholm. That's still one I would take a look at. If the Hurricanes are potentially looking at moving on from Brett Pesce, do they look at somebody like William Nylander from Toronto? Put together a package for him, get an expiring forward with 1 year left on his contract. For a defenseman with 1 year left on his contract, the Hurricanes would have to add to Pesce to get Nylander. But and then there's the issue of them having to, try to extend him long term. But another one that I think has been bandied about before, I have no idea if he's actually available or what the Flyers are doing, but if they're thinking more of a rebuild, Travis Konechny, obviously we know there's a trade relationship with the Hurricanes and Flyers with what's going on with Tony DeAngelo. Travis Konechny put up 31 goals in 60 games last year, is signed for 2 more years at a very reasonable $5.5 million cap hit. So maybe that's one you look at. Again, no idea if he's available, no idea what the Flyers are planning, no idea if they would be willing to trade a player of that caliber to a divisional opponent. But that is someone that I think I might try to take a look at.
Yeah, that's one that could be really interesting. Like you said, there is that trade history there with Philly already, and if that is one that Philly would be willing to part with, do they do them both at the same time? Connect me, excuse me, and D'Angelo for whatever they were gonna whatever they were gonna send for D'Angelo, and then whatever Philly would want for Konechny. That would be really interesting. But like you said, trading a player of that caliber to a division rival would be a bit interesting. And if again, if they're just gonna blow it all up and go full rebuild, then whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting market right now, and interesting situation that the Hurricanes are in, because it feels like there's just so many twists and turns throughout all of this, and it's called silly season for a reason. And I think all of these could be pretty viable options, and there all be ones that would be fun to see. It's kind of getting to that point with some of these names that are circling around that the Hurricanes are interested in. It's almost like I fired up the PlayStation behind me and put in the new NHL game, and are just turn the salary cap off and are just making whatever trades I can. It definitely feels like that, which is fun. And at the end of the day, one thing about all of this, especially for longtime Hurricanes fans, is to see the Hurricanes in the mix for players of this caliber, for Tarasenko, Carlson, Konechny, Lindholm, because for so long no one wanted to come here, and whether it be in free agency or waiving trade clauses or whatever, no one wanted to come here, and we kind of got stuck with the scraps a lot. So it is fun to see the Hurricanes in the mix for players of this caliber.
Yeah, I think having an owner that spends to the cap and Tom Dundon makes a big difference. I think, having a GM who's willing to take risks and get in on all these big deals like Don Waddell makes a big difference. And I think, again, just having a good team where players feel like they can go and win and be part of a winning culture with Rod Brind'amour, I think that helps a lot too.
Yeah, it really does. Because we've heard from countless guys on the team now, guys that have since moved on to other teams. The guys love playing for Rod. He's a player's coach. He's been there. He's done that. He knows what he's talking about. We've talked about that at length in the past, so we won't spend a lot of time on that now. But yeah, the Hurricanes, it's very nice that they've become a place where players want to play. And we've talked some already about potential trades that the Hurricanes could make, and a name that has been circulating a lot in the trade market is that of Brett Pesce. We've talked about it a bit before already in a previous episode, but we will continue to talk about it in just a minute, right after this quick break. All right, folks, we are back, and Andrew just sent me a message in our chat here while we're recording that there are some small news, but what is it, Andrew, before we get into potential Pesce trades?
So we talked a couple days ago about the Hurricanes giving Dylan Coghlan a qualifying offer. They have officially re-signed him to a 1-year contract worth $850,000. Pretty low deal, little more than the league minimum. He wasn't great last year, but he does give you a right-handed depth defenseman who you can play on your third pairing in a pinch if there are injuries. Again, important for the Hurricanes to have some of these depth guys with no AHL affiliate. So, I think at that price and that term, for having a guy who knows your system back, I think that's fine. So there you go. Dylan Coghlan will be back with the Hurricanes next season.
Yeah, I just got it. I just saw the email as well. Do we know if it's a one or two way? I'd assume one way.
If
It
the
doesn't say.
email just says 1 year, 850,000, it would, if it was two way, it would say like how
Okay,
much he'd make at the NHL or AHL level. So
yeah.
it's a one way.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. But getting back on track to Brett Pesce. He's again a name that's been circulating a lot for the Hurricanes to be potentially moving out, and it sucks because we all really like Brett Pesce. We know what he brings to the table, which is a reason we don't want to give him up because we know what he does for the team. But I do definitely think that if he does get moved, it will be in one of these big trades. I think that he would be essentially kind of like the centerpiece for a trade. A Nashville was, a team that I mentioned to you before we started recording. That was a name that I had kind of heard being one that could potentially be happening. And, we both kind of said they really, not a whole heck of a lot there, aside from Philip Forsberg, then Roman Yossi, really aside from those two, not really a whole lot there in Nashville, unless it would be like a three-way trade or something like that. But I definitely think, Pesce, he would be one. He would kind of be like the centerpiece for a trade. And you do figure, if you're going to trade for, say, Erik Karlsson or Elias Lindholm, someone like that, you're also going to have to give up more than just Pesce. I could definitely see, given we literally just said, he signed that extension. Dylan Coghlan is definitely one I could see, being tossed into a trade. We've talked before about Teuvo Teravainen and him potentially being one that is on the trade block as well, especially if you're going to go for someone like Elias Lindholm. I could definitely see them wanting him in that trade as well. Jack Drury being another one that I could see being thrown in on a trade as well. We talked about before of him having already requested a trade at some point this past season. So all of those are guys that I could potentially see the Hurricanes giving up. Are there any other names or assets that you could see them giving up?
I mean, it depends. Like depending on how big a name they're acquiring. I mean, if they went after a true superstar, like a William Nylander,
Yeah.
you could even see. I could still even maybe see Martin Necas as part of the trade. It would have to be, I think, for a really big name like that. If that were the case, Nashville is an interesting potential trade partner because they're not going to get Philip Forsberg or Roman Yossi. Those are core players for Nashville. They're signed to big long-term deals that the Hurricanes can't fit in. I don't love a lot of their players, but a guy like Brett Pesce probably goes for a first-round pick, and that's a first-round pick that the Hurricane, or at least a first-round pick that the Hurricanes can turn around and use in a deal like with San Jose for Erik Karlsson or for an Elias Lindholm, because you figure a first-round pick from Nashville holds some value because it's going to be probably around the middle of the first round. Nashville may not make the playoffs next year, so it may be higher. So that could net you a valuable trade chip in almost like a three-way trade if you deal Pesce to a team like Nashville for futures, turn around and flip those for somebody like Karlsson or Lindholm or somebody or Konechny or somebody who we haven't discussed. I think if you're gonna go just the Erik Karlsson route, I think sending him makes a lot of sense because I think San Jose is a team in full rebuild mode. So they're probably not going to sign Pesce long term. He's not going to extend with them, but he gives them an asset that they can flip for, say, a first round pick or a top prospect, either in season or at the deadline. So I could definitely see him potentially going the other way in an Erik Karlsson trade if that's something the Hurricanes are still looking at. And we have not seen anything that says they're not. So
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that they're not still in on Carlson. Uh, because I think the only reason that stuff kind of died down was simply because of all the Tarasenko talk, and that was kind of what everyone started talking about was that move rather than the Hurricanes trading for Erik Karlsson. So I definitely think Pesce, he'll get the Hurricanes will get a decent return for him, regardless of who they go after. And Carlson again, that would be pretty fun to see. And William Nylander, that's another one I almost feel like that one may be more likely I guess because of the way the Hurricanes are wanting to add to their top six, because their uh, defensive core is already so loaded. And again, the D'Angelo trade that's going to happen before here in the next few days. I believe it was the 9th was when that could happen. But the Nylander move, I like that. I think it would honestly just kind of depend on what kind of extension he is wanting, really. And it would be fun. They would definitely have to give up a sizable amount. Brett Pesce, obviously. I think Teuvo Teravainen could be thrown in on that. You mentioned Marty Necas as well. The Hurricanes would have to give up a significant amount for him. But it's a trade that it's very interesting to think about with that one, because he could really add something for the Hurricanes. But with that, what the Hurricanes would have to give up is what I would I would kind of be concerned about, because it would be a lot.
yeah, I don't think you're probably sending Teravainen the other way in that one because I think Toronto probably would prefer Necas and they might not want to take on Teravainen's cap hit even for a year. And again, this is just speculation on our part. There's nothing formal or official or any kind out there linking the Hurricanes to Nylander. But if they were going to try to make a big swing, with a Brett Pesce type as the centerpiece, that's a guy who there's some logic there, given Toronto maybe looking for a little bit of a change and him being on a contract that expires in a year. But again, like you said too, I think the biggest piece of that is how much the Hurricanes would have to pay him going forward, and can you fit that in with new deals for a Sebastian Aho, a Jacob Slavin, and others going forward, and still be able to fill out the rest of your roster? I think you could. It would just be challenging, and you'd have some other hard decisions to make and have to be able to fill out a lot of the bottom half of your roster with young, cheap players, which teams have done that and teams have won doing that. But, I think that's just a decision you're going to have to make if that's a path you want to take going forward. If you add Nylander or even like an Elias Lindholm and you want to sign him to a big extension, because that's another big contract you have to pay, you're subtracting a big contract in Pesce, and maybe you don't re-sign Brady Shea because you have Dmitry Orlov for 2 years, and then you have some prospects that could be coming up. So it's going to be interesting to see, just how the Hurricanes choose to allocate, these long-term funds.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this stuff goes down. And as we saw, at the beginning of this segment, news can come out at any time. It wouldn't surprise me if after we hit in recording here in a bit, if we get more news about this stuff. Anything can happen at any given moment, whether it be Kane signing Tarasenko, Kane's trading Brett Pesce for someone. Anything can happen at any given time. So make sure you are tuning in to Locked On Hurricanes for all of the Hurricanes news. We hope you guys had a good 4th of July yesterday if you celebrated. And make sure you are following the show on Twitter at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. And Andrew on Twitter at ASchnitt53. Guys, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy all the speculation and silly seasonness regarding the Hurricanes, and we will talk to you guys in the next episode. And as always, let's go Canes.